Yes, hello everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How y'all doing today? It is a Thursday, and it is a busy Thursday. We've had quite a bit of news. It's always like this with United. It's nothing, and then it's all at once. You're getting a whole mess of stuff. But quite frankly, this shouldn't be a surprise. This is why we sort of talked about the meeting last week. While yes, sometimes these sorts of meetings are ordinary in nature, they are meetings where decisions get made. And make no mistake, my friends, everything you are hearing this week is as a consequence of the meeting that was held last week, which was intended to be in-depth and thorough to bring forward a lot of these decisions and figure out where we are going for the future. Because the planning for summer starts well in advance, and everything happens there. So we'll talk about a lot of stuff. I hope you are all doing very, very well. How you doing, Red Eye Jedi? I hope you're good. I hope everybody else is good. I hope you're all doing well on this fine day. We do have news to discuss quite a bit, and it's appropriate. There's a reason we've been talking about the squad and what it's going to look like over the last few days on these videos. And it's because, of course, these are the questions that are coming up right now and starting to get answered as it pertains to the squad. These are the questions, and these are the things that have to matter. These are the things that are fundamental to what's going to happen over the next few months and into summer. The planning starts today. This is what it's supposed to look like. Shouldn't say starts today. It doesn't start today. It starts ages ago. It starts months ago. But it accelerates now as you move into the second half of the season. And I think a lot of what it's telling us is like we're lining up our moves for summer. And there's a few big discussions to talk about right now that I want to cover. Obviously, in this video, we're going to talk about Casemiro to start. We're going to talk about Kobbie Mainoo, new contract. We've been talking about that in recent days, and I want to explain the situation in a little bit more depth as to what has gone on, because I would hope that update was means a little more, but as of yet, a little bit of patience is still probably in order. We'll talk about Bruno Fernandes, obviously, and how it relates to this. And there's still one guy. There's still one guy missing. There's still one guy we haven't heard from yet. There's still one guy we don't know their future at this point in time of these key guys. And that's what I've put in the poll right now, which is Harry Maguire. I want to state when we get to that, at least my current understanding of the situation, which, to be clear, whether a firm decision was made in the last week or so, I don't know yet. And I'm sort of exploring that now. But I do believe that a firm sort of decision on what happens next has been made on Maguire at this point. I only know where it was leaning in the months leading up to it. So I'll see if I can get a more firm update on that one soon for you guys as well. And then I also want to talk about Michael Carrick, because some of the stuff we talked about in terms of his situation was essentially confirmed by David Ornstein on a very interesting podcast with Duncan Castles, which I recommend you take a listen to, because I think it's very illuminating and informative. I think it will also put to bed people stop clamoring for Luis Enrique, because that's not going to happen. Things like that in terms of who could be our next manager. I do want to talk about that as well. So we have much to discuss today. But we'll start with Casemiro. Let's start with Casemiro. Let me just tweet that we are live again, and let's get into it. Much to discuss. I wanted to say, by the way, I'll be honest with you guys. I think that Douglas Luiz could have been this secret midfielder for what it's worth. Just given the news that was there today, and given that a couple of other clubs have firmly entered conversations for him. Douglas Luiz, if you guys remember to last summer, I can tell you for a fact, was a player on United's radar at one point that they were considering bringing in. Makes me very curious seeing the news today about Chelsea and other clubs going for him. If maybe it was one United had explored, but weren't really ready to commit to. And so hence not really wanting a story out there about it. I'm speculating a little bit there, but before I forget, I wanted to mention that I wouldn't have been surprised if there was some conversations with Luiz, because we did look at it. We have looked at that deal on a few occasions, especially given that he could be on loan. And to be fair, I would like it. I would take him as a loan to help us out a little bit, but it doesn't sound like we're gonna get involved. But yeah, it's an interesting one because that was one United were around. Maybe there's personal reasons, there's things you can find out about his personal life and look into. Maybe just didn't fit, he felt the culture. Who knows? I can only speculate why we haven't moved forward on that kind of deal, but it was there to be done, essentially, if we wanted to. All right, let's talk Casemiro. Obviously, we got the firm announcement that Casemiro is leaving Manchester United this summer upon the expiry of his contract. Obviously, they wanted to get this out ahead of time. He joined, obviously, in that crazy first season under Ten Hag towards the end. Helped us very strongly at least in that first season, break our trophy drought and get us up to a good position. I think in that first year, Casemiro was one of the best midfielders in the league for a good stretch of time, that first season. And it's interesting to debate the Casemiro situation and to debate the feeling on him. But to a degree, this is what I was talking about yesterday, saying, like, I'm glad we're doing this. Not that this wasn't going to happen. I've been telling you guys for months Casemiro will leave at the end of his contract. But for months, one game, the City game, and suddenly I saw tons and tons of clamor. Just, let's keep Cas another year. Why don't we keep Cas another year? Hell no. It's the right choice and the right time for him to leave. And we can have, I think, a solid conversation about the reality of the present without insulting the past. Casemiro is one of the greatest midfielders of all time. One of the greatest. He came to United the first season, helped us so much. A lot of money for a player who was obviously very clearly on the decline. And that's just life. That's just life. Okay. That's just life. It is what it is. We live with that. We move on. Right time for him to go. A lot of ups and downs. A lot of ups and downs. Not a lot of consistency, but also just it's highly limiting. Casemiro has some things he's exceptional at still to this day. But you're always going to be highly limited by mobility, things like that, just due to age and all of that. But if we'd gotten him 3 to 4 years prior, who knows what could have happened, But I got to say, it's crazy that we've ended up with, between Varane and Casemiro, 2 Real Madrid legends playing for the club. And I have some fond memories of both of them, despite it being up and down over their tenures. It's still the right decision now. And I think very, very important that it's been put out there, because not only does it end the speculation, not only does it end if he starts 35 games type of thing where I was like, oh my God, can you imagine? But also, I think what's really important too, from a club perspective, is it sends a message to the market. It sends a message to Elliot Anderson, to Carlos Baleba, to these guys out there who go, you know what? One of the most legendary positions occupied by greats at United is available to secure for the future. Who has the ambition? The way that Cunha and Bumo, these guys wanted to join the club. Who has that ambition to say, that's my spot and I'm going to become the next great Manchester United number 6? We've had greats. I mean, even post, even post Sir Alex's retirements. I mean, we've had amazing midfielders over the years, right? Very memorable ones between Scholes and Keane and obviously many, many more. I'm not trying to list them off the top of my head, but Carrick, and then and then even beyond that, McFred. No, I'm just kidding. But like, we got Matic a little bit too late. We got Casemiro a little bit too late. But regardless, like, it's a huge, important position. Who's going to come in and be the guy? Period. Who's going to be the guy? Who's coming into that role? Who's coming into that position? And you're going to motivate them. And we'll have the ability to, as well, we're going to have money to pay decent wages. We're going to have money to pay transfer fees. Anderson's going to be $100 million, and you're going to have to offer him around $200,000. Baleba's going to still be around $70 to $80 million, and you're going to pay him maybe a little bit more reasonable on the wages. Wharton is still going to be around $80 million, and you're going to have to pay him big wages to compete. It's an interesting time, but I think it presents a serious message ahead of time to say who wants to be the axis, the key, the rock in our midfield moving forward. Who wants to be that guy? I think it's a serious ask. You know what I'm saying? I think it's a serious thing to think about. You know what I'm saying? For that. And I think it's something that presents opportunity. It's like we were talking about just yesterday, and I really stand by this because this is the feeling of the club right now. Okay. And it's this: Manchester United is not the end result. It is not where you go when you've made it. Not at now anyway. When you've made it and you just want the big deal cash in, you're at the biggest, you're there. Right now, during this current phase, we're not signing Galacticos like Madrid. You come to Madrid because you're already the best player in the world. We're not signing those types of players. We're signing players who look at their career and saying, I want a chance to show I'm the best. I can be the best. And that's what we're supposed to be offering in this position. And I think that if we sign players and continue to bring players in who have that attitude, we will have much more success than what we have had in the past with our signings. And I think this Casemiro situation is a big, big message, essentially, to the market about that. A big message to the market. So, yeah, we will see on that front. But United are ramping things up. The lining up deals for summer and all of that. I can tell you from what I recall last year, I know this for sure. It's unbelievable that we're at this time again. I usually do this in early February, but because January is very quiet. So how United do business, and this remains true. This is how most clubs do business, but certainly it's how United do business. Pretty much at the close of the January window, we start making contact with lots of players. Over the course of October, November, December, we scout, we build this big list. We narrow down a little bit more to a lot of the main targets, but it'll still be kind of big at this point. And look, we know who our top targets are. But remember, we want 2 midfielders at the very least, and you also need to have lots of alternatives. We also need a winger. We've only heard a few. And Jai being one of the remaining ones, Diomande. We have this big list. It gets narrowed down a little as we continue scouting them. Come February, we'll start contacting people. We have people who are in specific positions to contact representatives of these players. What questions they start asking. Is your player available for a move this summer? How much is it going to cost? What kind of wages are they looking for? What kind of situations? You start discovering clauses. You start looking at this. And this is what happens between February and mid-March is very often we're going to start getting all these links. And they're not necessarily all fake, even though you start getting a bunch of links. They're not necessarily all fake. I know people get the idea it's all bullshit because you get so many links. They're not necessarily. Just very often, a lot of the links are very minor. We've just asked. We're just gathering data at this stage. But they have a lot of those conversations. This used to be done, a lot of it by Steve Brown. I think he departed. Someone else has replaced him at the club in that position right now. It could be done by Vavell directly. That's also very much possible as head of recruitment. That could be the case. But they make those contacts. They start gathering data. They start doing that. Now, some players will already have that. Carlos Baleva, there's been regular contact. We've been contacting before January. We kind of know his situation. Elliot Anderson, probably similars on some of those. But for a lot of the other targets, this is when we might start hearing, United looking at X player, United looking at this, United looking at that. I remember the Delap rumors really ramped up last year around February, because that's when we started making contact with him and his people, and other names too, for what it's worth. But it was also in February that people figured out, hey, Cunha's probably going to be our first signing, things like that. So we will hear more about this. United want to be very proactive. They want to essentially know their business nailed down before the World Cup for obvious reasons, and have a couple of deals lined up by then. Certainly there will likely be business after the World Cup, but they would like to get as much as they can done beforehand, at least mostly settled. We'll see. Intentions and execution are two different topics. But they'll start making those kind of contacts now. But that's also why it's so important to know what we have at the club and what's leaving and what happens next, for financials, for squad space, because people ask questions, all of that. So we'll start making those kind of contacts now. But yeah, very, very interesting times. That's what we're doing at the moment. I saw some little updates and things from Sully and such, but essentially that is the point. Meeting, talking, finalizing the players. Who are we going to contact? Who on this big list are we contacting? And then you narrow it down to like 3 or 4, and you start working through all of that as you get into March and April, and then you really in earnest make those pursuits of players at that point in time. So yeah. So anyway, that's kind of where we are at the moment in dealing with this. So Casemiro departing, big question there. Obviously, we know first and foremost our number one priority in the window is getting that 6. We know what our major targets are. There are others as well, in the midfield for smaller signings. But we know the big ones. And there's a good confidence at United that we can secure one of them. Obviously, getting into Europe, getting into Champions League probably widens the door on how easy or obtainable some of them would be, especially ones like Anderson. Guys will be big competition, but we'll get one. We will get one. I think we'll get Anderson or Wharton very strongly. I think we will get one of them. And I think that right now there's definitely an effort to sell Anderson on the situation to come in. Obviously Bruno, another one, where United essentially were saying, look, we're trying to plan everything out for the future. We need to talk. We need to know about your future. We can't wait until end of July to figure that out, because if we need to replace you, then we need to figure out who and how and what happens next. I said a couple of days ago that I wasn't ready to write off Cole Palmer rumors. They're still swirling and circling and sort of building to a very interesting sort of crescendo. I still don't know how much there is in it yet, but I'm not willing to write it off. Could well be that that there's something in it, or at least someone might be wanting to keep it warm. Obviously, he's known to Jason Wilcox and to others as well, quite a few people, and obviously would boyhood United fan, so you never know. But I get kind of the idea that somebody might want to keep that warm just in case Bruno decides to leave. He'd be a good signing. In that case, he would be a very good signing if Bruno leaves. If you want to have a more traditional replacement, then it makes a bit more sense, right? Than if you want to have a more traditional replacement in there. But yeah, that's essentially where we're at on that front. But yeah, look, just finally on the Casemiro thing, obviously you're going to get a lot of different opinions on his time here. I think ultimately for the amount of money spent, it was just another poor decision in that respect. Paid way too much. Obviously a wonderful guy and a wonderful career, and United have to do really well to get a top midfielder in moving forward and get it right this time, because we've been buying players a little past their sell-by dates for too long, and in those positions especially. Kobbie Mainoo, this is the next sort of story, and I'm not tempering this at all, because we've talked about this in the last couple of days, that this was obviously going to become another topic again very, very shortly on getting Kobbie down to a new deal. Because United, just to be very clear, let's look at the story a little bit, and we'll talk about it. It says, exclusive, Man United ready to open talks with Mainoo over a new deal. Not really, but we've been ready to open talks with him over a new deal. In fact, we've had many talks with him over a new deal. I think Simon Jones, like 2 days ago, even in his report from the Daily Mail, said that like they basically agreed a contract a while back, but then it just couldn't get done. Casemiro leaving, United are keen to tie down another. This is very, very true. They plan to sit down and discuss a new contract, have more talks, etc. He wants, boost up of the thing, etc., etc., etc. Okay. The reality is this. United and Kobbie have had, outside of this last like 5-month period, United and Kobbie and his people have had talks over a contract dating back like almost 20 months ago over figuring out this new contract situation. United have been wanting to tie him down to a new contract for quite some time. They had contract talks last January. They had contract talks and multiple meetings between January and summer about a new contract. And the intention was, of course, always to a large degree to get that new contract done. And I do have to tell you, as I've said many times, that in the background of this whole Amram situation, one of the only reasons that it didn't like totally blow up in Amram's face at the club, because it didn't. You have to realize that, again, if he didn't self-destruct and essentially quit and blow up with the club, he would still be here. And Kobbie would probably still not be playing. So it's a bit messy. It's messy in this respect. The background of it is still that a contract is still needed and wanted. And if he has a new contract, I think it would have been maybe thought of a bit differently by the club in how to resolve it, the whole situation between him and Amram. But obviously for the last 4 or 5 months, it's not been a subject of discussion for Kobbie, because you don't want to sign a new deal when you're not getting play time, when nobody wants to, when the coach isn't wanting to put you on the pitch, all of that. That has definitely been a hindrance to resuming of discussions. But what is important to note is that they still have to reach an agreement on wages, and that was still an issue previously. I would imagine from Kobbie's perspective, his people's hope will be that they can, or plan maybe, will be that they can work through the next some months, that they can work through the next some months and improve his position, improve his standing, turn up a bit, have a strong position in the team and help guide United towards Champions League qualification. And then, it improves his leverage in terms of asking for a new contract. From the club's perspective, they're still going to sit there and say, look, much as everybody loves Kobbie and you're an academy player and we want to keep you and we've not in all of these things, we still have our model for wages, and none of the fan sentiment they're not going to pay Kobbie $50,000 more because he's very popular. Like, there's still to them a disciplined level of wages that they're going to stick to. I think it's fair that if over the next 4 or 5 months Kobbie plays a blinder, helps us get into Champions League, that improves his negotiating stead to ask for more. But realistically, they're going to want him to be on the wages of around what Ahmad was at. And that was where the discussions were before. So hopefully they can come to some kind of agreement, but it's more like these discussions that were on hold because of obviously the lack of playtime under Amram and the concerns over that situation are ready to be resumed. But we've kind of known that they've wanted to keep Kobbie and get him tied down on this new deal for some time. Thank you, Jonathan, for 5 gifted memberships to the community. Thank you very much, my friend. Good to see you again. Good to see you again. Hopefully we keep the positivity up. Spending the Casemiro money today. Yes, thank you. So yeah, this is the situation as of now. Yes, we want to open new contract talks for him. That was guaranteed the minute that Amram was out the door, because it wasn't the club not wanting to do new contracts necessarily. It was more a matter of Kobbie not wanting to sign a new deal while, of course, in this difficult situation with Amram, and they'd kind of walked away from the talks. So now that's resolved, and Carrick set out very early on to tell Kobbie he'd be an important part of his team while he's here. I think that those concerns are ultimately mostly resolved. So it's really going to just be, for the most part now, about finding the right wage agreements and all of that. Permanent unretirement, I'm back. Awesome. Glad to have you. So yeah, interesting times in that respect. Obviously an important kind of topic. Give me 1 second. Okay. So there we are. So that keeps us up with Kobbie. Now, one player who, again, that I've put in the poll here and I wanted to see is Maguire, because the one answer that we don't have, Casemiro, we knew he was very likely to go. That decision just needed to be made. Bruno, they're trying to resolve his future. Kobbie, obviously, they want to tie down. So that tells you in terms of the midfield, that right now, next season at the moment is set to look something like, we've got Bruno, ? Mainoo, they want to sort that out and nail that position down. They want to know what Bruno's future is if he's staying, so that position's nailed down or not. The 6th position, you've got Ugarte is pretty much your only option going into next season. Could be sold, could end up staying as depth. But yeah, serious questions there. The last sort of player who's in a similar situation to like the Maguire or the Casemiro, Bruno, like Mainoo, things like coming towards end of contract, what are we going to do with them type of things, though more closely here tied to Casemiro, where it's expiring this summer, is Harry Maguire. And the question is, do we keep him or not? The way I looked at it was that when we were playing a 3 at the back, I think I was almost less inclined to keep him because you need 3 top center backs. You kind of can't carry stragglers or players who are injured here or there and all that, even though I do rate Harry Maguire's leadership. At the end of the day, if we only have 2, could Maguire be a 5th center back? Here's my question. Does it stop you from signing a top center back? Because we discussed this in the last couple of yesterday's video, right? Where I think we're one of the things we're still really lacking is that, serious top level, incredible center back that can just, tear things up and all of that. And I don't believe that we have that as of yet. Harry is sort of one where I'd be going, maybe you keep him as a 5th center back, but do you need 6 senior center backs? If you've got Yoro, De Ligt, Heaven, Lissandro, Maguire, then you have to sign it. You still need to sign one. Do you have 6? Do you have 6 center backs for 2 positions now? Like, I'll be honest with you. I would almost rather let someone else go and keep Harry, but that's a different question because that's not necessarily what's on the table. So yeah, I'd be happy on a 1+1 for like 120, 100,000, something like that. But the question is it really necessary, or is it just going to take minutes from somebody else? I think largely some of this depends on Lenny Yoro. Where's he at? Because you kind of almost need to keep Harry because right now he might be our best center back still. And some people are going to say he's not and no way and all of that. But I'm just saying he kind of might be our best center back right now. You've got young players like Yoro and Heaven. The reason I would say that it's a little bit different to... The reason that I would say it's a little different to the midfield is we don't have other players for Casemiro. We need to sign a top-level midfielder. And he's on huge wages, $350,000 a week next season. With Maguire, there's no contract to extend. You're talking about you would renegotiate a smaller contract. I think the question is, do you think the young players you have are good enough or could be good enough in the future? Or do you need to buy a top-level center back to put them? If you think Yoro and Heaven and Delict are good enough to be your guys in the future, you keep Harry. If you don't think they're good enough in the future, then you don't. You don't keep him and you go make a big signing. And I think that's the question right now. And I think it's actually a little hard to answer, right? Are Lenny, Heaven, Delict good enough to be your future center backs? Because if so, you don't go spend big money. You save the money and have just some extra leadership in there and give them time to develop. But if you don't think they're good enough, you need to go get a top-level center back. I think where I lean today is, as much as I value Maguire and appreciate him, and I think he's been a wonderful player, and I think he's been better than he's ever gotten credit for, because of injuries and things like that, and because I have serious doubts over some of our center backs right now, I would say let him go and go get a big time center back. That's what I would say. That would be my current inclination. And I'd be tempted from the nostalgia standpoint to say one more year. 50% of people say one more year. 45% say you should go next. It's close. Again, from a nostalgia standpoint and from a standpoint of how much I like Harry, I would consider it. But my inclination is you need to get a really, really, really good center back in this summer. If over the next 4 months, you see like insane performances from Heaven and Yoro, then figure it out. On Maguire, I don't think, I said earlier that I don't know what the exact decision is. And I think potentially part of the decision might be, from what I've heard so far, still leaning towards him going, but a little bit of a wait and see on this one, as compared to obviously on Casemiro and things like that. So yeah, I think there might be a little bit of a wait and see on this one for him in terms of how does he do over the rest of the season? How does Lissandro do? Does Delict come back ever? Does Yoro come back ever into the team? How does his level step up? Does Aiden Heaven continue his development? I think that if you can kind of wait and see on Maguire a little, I would say, because we have options there. You could wait and see a little bit, and figure out what you're going to do next on that front. So it's interesting times, but I think that one may be sort of just slightly up in the air at this point in time, right now. So yeah, that's where we're at on that. Now, the next major thing I wanted to speak about here right now is, of course, Michael Carrick and this whole future manager position, because our future head coach, excuse me, rather, we got to get our positions right. It's a big topic of discussion. Hold on one second. All right, I had to yell at my dog for barking. I don't have the button. Hang on, anyway. It's old joke now. It's like 3 months old in internet time. I'm not allowed to. I can't make that joke anymore. It's too late. But yes. So Carrick and the head coach position. I think I shared a little bit earlier in the week that as my understanding was, number one, obviously Steve Holland coming in was somebody who was very much certainly in coordination with Carrick, an idea from the club, someone that perhaps could end up staying on as a coach for the long term, and could be like a club-led coach or something like that. Could be the case. But more specifically, as far as Carrick goes, what I said earlier in the week is that the thing with Carrick is that it's not about he should get the job now or anything. The view on Carrick and the thing is here is that essentially he will be weighed up against the other candidates, very likely based on his body of work. The important way to look at Michael Carrick, instead of flying all over the place into like extreme statements of he should definitely get the job or 100% rule him out. And I kind of brought this point up to the guys on the red carpet on Monday, saying why be so, to Flex and KG, because I saw them on the thing last week going like, we can't say Carrick should get the job. And I'm going, well, I get the idea of like not being overreactive and all of that, because people are already being crazy overreactive after this one game against City about so many different things. But the reverse is also true. You don't have to say we definitely shouldn't get Michael Carrick just because we got Ollie. Maybe when we shouldn't have hired Ollie. Not that it even went that badly with Ollie, obviously, but like you shouldn't have it both ways. But this is how the club are thinking about it too. They have definitely not just said, nope, can't be Carrick because of Ollie, because of the past. Can't be Carrick. They've definitely not said that, and they're not thinking that way. Nor are they thinking with like, it's your job, Carrick, your job to earn and to lose. It's not either or. It's simply stepping back unemotionally, and this is the way that they're looking at it and saying, okay, Carrick is a good coach, experienced guy, understands the club. Let's see how he does. And based on that, let's see how he does. And based on that, we'll just weigh him up against our other candidates. That's it. We'll just weigh him up against our other candidates. That's all. Nothing else. Just weigh him up against our other candidates. And look at his body of work. Because he is an experienced coach. He's an experienced manager. There's a reason we were considering like McKenna for some of the same kind of reasons. And you just go, okay. End of the season, what they will do, or as we get into April, is say, how's he doing here? How's he getting on with the team? How's he getting on? Do we feel like tactically he's got a next level? Do we feel like he's a guy who could take us further? Do we feel like how is he done? What does his record look like? And weigh him up against the managers that we will be talking with, all these other ones, and say, who fits? Who fits? He will be applying. He could be essentially what he's going to do over the next few months, in addition to his whole career, is going to be his resume that will get slid into the basket for the job application alongside Tuchel, De Zerbi, etc., McKenna, etc., right? And that's it. That's all. We don't have to overcomplicate it. It can be a simple, easy answer, and that's the answer. That he's just where he is. We don't have, it's not a ruled out or a gotta be Carrick type of situation. It's just whatever. It's just in the middle. It's just what it is. So that's the way to look at this. That's the way to see this. That's the way that we should be assessing this situation, is just How does he do? And then we'll look at it in conjunction with and compared to our other candidates. Does he nail the interview? Does he improve upon his resume? And how does that stack up to others as well? So that's what we're looking at right now. And like I was saying, I said before, the City thing for me, it's not like I'm not overreacting and saying, okay, Carrick should get the job or something like that. It was more a matter of if I look at where we're at as a club, I'm okay with the concept of if you think Carrick's going to bring stability that's going to let us finish building this team, then I'm fine with him staying for another year. Like, it would be okay to me for Carrick to be the guy before the guy, in really understanding our situation, the guy to build some good foundations. Maybe he won't be the guy to take us all the way, but depending on where we're at the end of the season, what are we even looking for? Are we looking for the guy for titles, or are we looking for someone to continue to build in stability? We don't know yet exactly. If we get Champions League, they might feel that process accelerates. I don't know. We will see. But as well, if you look at it, that it could be another season of transition, especially on the pitch and in terms of, leadership and things. What if Casemiro goes, Maguire goes, Bruno goes? It's possible that all three could go. Well, if they all leave, you've got a gaping void of creativity, of leadership rather, within the club to be looking at it and saying, what are we doing at this point in time? What are we doing? Yeah. So there's sort of a new piece. Let's pull this up, because this is kind of what we're talking about here, about this, that there could be like a huge overhaul, at United, but maybe there's stability. But yeah, but this is interesting because we've been talking about this last couple of days that, like, if Bruno leaves, you could end up with more here. Bunch of pieces and articles and such coming out, but essentially, 2 is our minimum of midfielders. I'm just trying to find this thing. There's just something from Daily Mail talking about major midfield overhaul could see as many as 4 new faces for Manchester United come in the summer, with Elliot Anderson and Carlos Baleba their 2 top targets. And that's how it should be, right? That's how it should be. I mean, I would suggest that what that implies is, like, yeah, if you're going to sell, Casemiro's going to go. If you're likely to move on Ugarte, you want Anderson, you want Baleba. You're still going to, you have Kobbie Mainoo, but you're going to end up competing with each other. But also, hopefully, this is under the consideration of having like 60 games again or something, so you're going to need to rotate and things like that. But also Bruno, like there's potentially so much overhaul to come this summer, with Casemiro going, with Maguire going, with, if they end up going in a manager choice that is, if they go with a manager choice that's stable, or a head coach choice that brings stability, that's okay. That's fine. That's fine. It goes and says, as well as Casemiro, there are doubts about the long-term futures of Bruno, Ugarte, Toby Collier. Toby Collier is not going to be a main feature in this team. While Eriksson, who left as a free agent, was not replaced, etc. So, yeah, I mean, when you look at the squad in general, here's what it could look like. Let me just pull this up again. If Bruno were to leave as well, Casemiro were to leave as well, which he's leaving, like, this is your Manchester United midfield. You have Mount, who's not really a traditional 10, but certainly could play there, Kobbie Mainoo, and Ugarte. And then you have doubts over Ugarte as well. So if you were to just look at this, you would say we probably need a 10. We probably need 1 6, maybe 2, and we need certainly another player here. So yeah, lots of questions that need to be answered with this squad, and that's what we've been discussing about in the last couple of days. But if we can get Champions League, if Bruno were to leave and this were to be the team, Maybe I don't know, maybe we go as like slightly more realistic. I don't really know how to put it, but maybe we go slightly more realistic. But like none of these are the guy, but that's not really particularly realistic, is it? Baleba, maybe we put like Buwadi or something back in here. No, something like this. Something like this could certainly be possible. You know, we need to sign 2, 3, maybe more midfielders come this summer. But that would certainly be the overhaul we've always wanted, if you look at it from an age profile and perspective and things like that. But that's how serious we need to be this window about the midfield. We need to be serious. Be serious. I'm being serious. We need to sign 4 midfielders. We need to sign like 4. But yeah, that is what is necessary, and that is what could happen. You got to replace Casemiro. Like, no matter what, you got to sign 2. Right? You need a number 6 and a number 8. No matter what, you need 2, because all you have is Ugarte and Mainoo right now. If Ugarte goes, you got to get a 3rd. If Bruno goes, you got to get a 4th. That's the reality. So when we get our answer from Bruno, that'll decide there. If we sell Ugarte, we need another one there, and that's ultimately very possible as well if we find value. So yeah, it's a big could be a big turnovers, man. It could be big turnovers this summer. Could be huge. But this is the level of midfield that we need to talk about. Like, this is where we're at, man. This is like, that's a serious rebuild. You know? That's like what we did up front, where suddenly it's very, very different. Very, very different. You know? Just in concept, you know what I'm saying? Like, we need to have 4 or 5 good young players, like when you talk, or in their prime, like you have Ahmad, Mbumo, Cunha, Šeško, Mount, like Ando, probably a winger. We need that for the midfield. A ton of players in their prime or younger coming into their prime in the next few years. That's what we need. And that's what I'm looking forward to this summer. But that's also why, as I said yesterday, and I'm thinking about this Maguire thing, there's a world here where the center back thing gets like, you know, like passed up. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a world where we end up, where it worries me a little bit, but there's a world where the center back situation falls behind. And you might say, well, this is still a very good team. It is. It's an excellent team. I still think it's lacking a superstar.
Man United
at the
might
back.
not thank me, but get the contract out, put it on the table. Let him write whatever numbers he wants. Carrick at the wheel. He's doing his thing. United are back. 1 game, guys, 1 game. We will never recover. Pensive face emoji.
But that's the thing. I gotta say though, would you guys be willing to pass up the center back if we did a serious midfield overhaul like that? Like, if we signed 3 midfielders, but passed up on the center back, what do you think? And don't worry so much about the specifics of the names that I'm saying there. Like, it'll probably be one of Baleba or Anderson, could be both. But if we were to do that, you think it would be acceptable to pass up the center back thing? I think the center back thing would be the thing that holds us back from becoming title winners, though. I think the center back situation would be the one that stops us, because I think you need absolutely, like, I'm not saying I still wouldn't. Like, if you were to ask me today, 2 midfielders and 1 top class center back, or 3 midfielders and no center back,
No
I don't
need
know
to
what my
sell
answer
the
would
best player in the league. If we do, I'd go Rodgers. We have enough left-footed attackers. And keep Maguire for a season and let Euro/Heaven grow if needed next season. Get a CB. Bale and Anderson possible with UCL?
Yeah, it is possible. Anything's possible. But Tubby, yes, it is possible. But, like, I just don't even know. You know what I mean? Like, could we? Yeah, obviously, ideal world, we sign a winger, we sign 3 midfielders, and we sign a center back. And we just do all of it. But, like, if I had to choose 2 midfielders and a center back, or 3 midfielders, I still think I don't know. I don't know what my answer would be. The problem that we have at center back, I'll say this, like this is the thing. At center back, we can't buy another good young player. We can in the midfield. We can buy some good young players, to add to the team. We can't compromise on it. It's too much work. This season proved it. Right. If we get Champions League, we do need to do it all. The issue specifically with, I agree with that. The issue specifically with the center backs is we have to buy a top center back if we buy a center back. It can't be some good young player again. We've got enough of that. We need a top center back. In the midfield, we need one top midfielder at least, and we need some good young players. So I'm kind of like, but they really just need to get it all done. I worry that the center back thing will get passed up. And that will, even though I like Maguire, I think I worry that we'll keep Maguire, pass up the center back, and rebuild the midfield, which is fine. And then it'll be like, all right, well, next year we'll do the center backs, and we'll be better. But I think it'll be the Achilles heel. I still feel that way, just because there's so much attention on the midfield right now, and so much question on the midfield right now, and so much money's going to go to the midfield, which it should. I just slightly worry. But if we get Champions League, and we could sell Ugarte maybe and sell some other stuff, maybe we could get it all done. It's possible. But what do you guys think? Let's do a new poll here. Do I like kind of? I'm not really sold on Van de Ven, I'll be quite honest. Let's look which. 3 mids, 1 top. 2 mids plus 1 CV top. And obviously 1 top. Which would you rather do right now? What do you think? What's the right choice here? Yeah, ambitious with Schlotterbeck, that would be nice. Am I on the payroll from Carrick?
What about a serious pound?
What about serious at left back? I mean, I don't know. We'll see about Shaw and Dorgu. I think the thing is if we buy a left winger, then Dorgu will become our future left back. If we don't buy a winger, then we could, and Dorgu becomes a winger, then we could buy a left back instead. But I think we'll buy one or the other, potentially. Yeah, it's 50-50, right? It's 50-50. Our problem at center back is not depth, it's quality. It's top level. It's like ceiling. It's a ceiling issue. We have a decently good flooring of center backs and decent options, but the ceiling is not particularly high. I think it's I don't think it's Premier League winning. I don't think it's Premier League winning at all. Level. I don't think we have anybody that right now I would say is good enough to win the Prem. We need at least one of that level. Like I can see with our forwards, guys like Mbumo and such, and have that potential, are can be good enough for that. And if we add midfielders, then I see it. But I think at center back, it's such an important position. I don't think any of ours are players I would have confidence in to win a title over the course of the season. And I'm talking about the spine of the team in particular, in that respect. Yeah, so you guys are pretty split, right? 53%, 47%. Most everybody's pretty split. I agree. It's tough. It's like if you go 2 mids, 1 center back, maybe your first 11 is better, but when you're rotating, you still struggle. If you go with the 3 mids, then your midfield is just insane. Fantastic. And then you could fix the center backs next year. Maybe that's the right way to do it. Just fix the midfield the way we did with the forward line. Just fix it. Just fully fix it. Keep Maguire for one more season and just fix the midfield. I might lean that way, to be quite honest. We'll see what they do. I think the decision's not quite been made there yet. I think once they get some midfielders, and obviously we have to wait again, hear from Bruno, hear about all that, then we'll kind of decide. But it's interesting times. Man, is it interesting times. And we've got a game this weekend against Arsenal. How are you guys feeling about that? I've got the link below to get the picks in for Arsenal. Gabriel Jesus will score a goal. Gabriel Martinelli will score a goal. Mateus Cunha will score a goal. Victor Gyökeres will score a goal. I would probably go like no. Under 3 goals in the match, yes. Arsenal over 6 corners in the match, yes. Honestly, I feel like if we concede, it's going to be someone like Gabriel, like the center back, not to one of the forwards. That's how I feel about it. But yeah, make sure you can get your picks in for this now. It's already all set up, and then I'll be obviously the game's on Sunday. Tomorrow we'll do our lineups and such. But yeah, then we've got this game. That's nerve-wracking as well. I feel like it's going to be like a 1-1. Tough game. Set piece, 0-0, 1-1, something like that. Like some really low, crap type of game. Arsenal are just so good at taking us out of our transitions. They'll play a deep block whenever they need to. They're so good at getting into that. That's how I feel. I just don't think you're going to see a lot of goals. I'll take a draw. If we had a win and a draw from City and Arsenal, be super happy about that. But I think people are going to think we're going to see a game like City, but we won't. When you go from the quality of City's defenders to the quality of Arsenal's, it's like a joke. Like you're talking about kids, guys with very little to no experience in that City game. If you weighed that back line up in the Premier League, it would be near last versus the best in potentially Europe in a back line. Very different game. And Mbeumo Cunha and Mbeumo Diallo and Mbeumo. I think it'll be, and then on set pieces, they're just much more of a threat. City had a fair number of corners in that game. If we give that many corners to Arsenal, I worry about that. I think it's going to be really, really tight. Really, really tight. But we did well against them at the start of the year. It's just we just didn't find a lot of openings.
Who are the 3 mids you're dreaming of, James?
If I had to pick 3, like somewhat in reality, I'd probably go Anderson, Buwadi, and Palmer. Those would be like my 3 top choices for like a top class, deeper, potential 10 future replacement for Bruno, either now or whatever, and then a good young player that can play in a few different areas of the midfield. That would be like my ideal midfield rebuild within the realm of what's kind of a real reality. That I think I'd go something like that. Yeah, this is one of the toughest defensive teams. We were all over them at Old Trafford, though, but were we? Did we get close to scoring is my question. We were good in that game, but did we actually get close to scoring? Our best shout in that Arsenal game on opening day, and I agree we played pretty well, and they had like nothing. Our best chance was that we should have probably had a penalty to Cunha. That's what I think. We should have had a penalty to Cunha. Other than that, we really didn't get much of a sniff, to be quite honest. 260 million on midfield. Yes. That's what we need. Yeah, we hit the post, but watch the chances. Like, I understand saying that we hit the post, but there's hitting the post and there's hitting the post. There's hitting the post and there's hitting the post. Like, I'm not saying like they were semi-speculative shots that would have been great goals had they got in, but they weren't like great chances. They would have been great goals, but they weren't great chances. Got to separate those things out. They would have been really good goals, but they were not great chances in general. It was a good game from us, but yeah. Yeah. But no, I mean, I think we should be spending almost everything on the midfield this summer. Just get it done. I mean, we spent 70, 60, 70, 200 on 3 forwards this summer. We should be spending similar to that, if not more, on the midfield right now. Who's on our CB list? I covered that yesterday. I apologize. I don't want to look up all the names right now. I did cover that yesterday, and I will do a new video here shortly of kind of revisiting all of our targets and the likelihood of signing and the priority positions and all of that as well. But yeah, just to kind of wrap things up for today, obviously Casemiro going, we know that's a good decision. Bruno, we want clarity on his future. Kobbie, they've always wanted to renew the contract. I think on his side, there's more of a willingness. I believe that there haven't actually been talks yet, but they will in the very, very near future. The wages and getting those agreed should be about the main thing to discuss at the moment. That was still sort of a sticking point from before, but no longer concerns over will he play or be an important part of a team, which was a huge block, obviously, the last 4 or 5 months. Maguire, that's the next sort of major question to answer. Beyond Bruno, we already know we want that answer from Bruno. That's the major question to answer in terms of Maguire. Do we keep him for another year? I believe this one might still be up in the air, even though I would say I would lean towards him leaving. I think this one might still be a little bit up in the air. Carrick, file him under. His resume is going to go into the pile next to the other ones. He's not being automatically ruled out. He's not being automatically ruled in. He's just going to be considered based on his body of work as well. And then, yeah, like we know, the left wing, 2 midfielders and a center back is in concept that what we want this summer. Departures of other players, Bruno, Ugarte, could affect that as well, and even increase those numbers. Okay, that's it for today. Once again, thank you all for being here. No, Greenwood will not be coming back. Thank you all for being here. Tomorrow we'll discuss more of the Arsenal game and see what the day brings and all of that. Okay, in the meantime, please, again, smash a like on a video before you leave. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll be back tomorrow, and then we'll see what the weekend holds and if we can keep up this positive feeling through Arsenal on Sunday. Bye, everybody.